Welcome everyone for joining us for Native American Visibility in Schools. My name is Christina Alaniz. Mihoen Nanatu Christina Alaniz. I am Cahuilla and Serrano. I am a citizen of the Morongo Band of Mission Indians. I live on the reservation. I've lived here all my life. And so I honor the Cahuilla lands in which I reside. I am a member of the Palm Springs Unified's Anti-Racism Coalition group. I'm also a CTA Human Rights Cadre trainer, and I have been coached by Dr. Hollie in the cultural responsive teaching. And Nicole.
Hi, I am Dr. Nicole Crawford. I'm the coordinator of diversity and racial equity here for Palm Springs Unified. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I would like to give thanks to my ancestors. My dad's side comes from the Iroquois tribe, specifically the Mohawk tribe. And my mom is from the Yupik tribe in Alaska, as well as Native Hawaiian. So I like to give thanks to all of my ancestors. I'm also a member of our Anti-Racism Coalition. I am a team member for our Conscious Education team, and I'm also a part of our Educational Services Leadership team. So thank you everyone for coming on this Saturday bright and early to join us to hear the speech of our peoples. So to open up the platform, again, I know Christina in the beginning, she did a land acknowledgement, but again, we would just like to really acknowledge that we are on Cahuilla tribe lands, and we want to give thanks because they are the original stewards of the land where we sit. And we're super grateful that they're allowing us this opportunity to collaborate with them and to be, land livers here. So we definitely want to pay respect to the Cahuilla people, both past, present, and emerging, because they have been the original stewards since time immemorial.
Okay.
I have a question for
sure, Frank.
For Christina.
Yes.
Have I ever met you before, like at Morongo?
Yes, sir. I met you at
It was you. Okay, yeah, for the bird dance. Yeah, the powwow.
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks. Good to see you again.
Making connections, guys. I love it.
Yeah, okay, cool.
All right, so our agenda for today, we kind of chunked it into 3 different sections. The first one, we'll just be giving some background about what exactly is visibility for our Indigenous peoples and talking about the trauma that we have faced within our communities. Then we would move forward and talk about some advocacy work about reclaiming our Native truths, going beyond land acknowledgements, right? Because land acknowledgements are just words, putting our words out into actions, and how to create culturally responsive classrooms throughout our district. Finally, we want to bring awareness about the Agua Caliente Cultural Plaza that's being built currently, our NAPAC that Christina has advocated and put together for our entire district for our people to come together and have a safe space to talk. And we will also share resources that we have.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, so before we get started and get into the space and this work, I do want to recognize and just, call attention to the fact that when it comes to equity work, it can at times be triggering, emotional, difficult work to discuss, depending on who is in the room, who's leading the session. I said before, jokingly in a sense, that I may or may not cry. To be honest, in the first session, I was still very raw from this morning. I came in very excited. I would say pretty much at 2. Because I'm, presenting makes me nervous, but also I was just feeling like so excited with hope, with everything that was going to happen, and the music and the kids speaking was just gorgeous and beautiful. And then, in hearing the bird songs, of course, was just singing to my heart. And then we have the Zoom bombers, which kind of like knocks us back into reality of like, oh, here we go. This is part of our work too. Right. And so I just want to also just acknowledge that and bring that to, that's what happened. And so that was also something that can affect us, affects me when I'm doing this work too. So I just want to have us all just to know that in this space, we're here together to learn, to grow. I want to create a safe space and a brave space where we can speak honestly. The first one we did, it was beautiful. And I just hopefully that I can continue to always offer that. And so if you can put in the chat where you're feeling right now coming into the space and why are you here with us? What brought you to this specific workshop? And are you feeling a 1, a 2, or a 3? Because all kinds of influences, right? It could be how you woke up this morning. Could be maybe something you saw on the news this morning. It could just be, maybe it's a birthday or a health celebration and you're happy. We all have different things going on.
Yeah.
Let me
A
just.
couple people are at 2 so far. All right.
Okay. Twos, yes.
Yeah, I would say it was a 2. Now I'm getting into the 1 zone because it was very emotional for us earlier, but
I hear you. I want to, yes. I don't know about you. I know, like, for myself, especially in this work, I feel like I'm always living on a 3. I feel like I'm always just like, oh, any second I'm gonna, and then start crying, because that's how I try not to give into my anger side, because I know I have that within me as well. But I usually tend to fall to the like crying and overwhelmed, but that's just a reality. And we're going to bring it up there and just put it all up there in the front and just own it and be honest about it, and hope that by the end of the session, we can all be at a 1, right? Or a 1.5 by the time we get through. So thank you for sharing that. So going into, as we get started, I'm just going to jump right into our session, right? Visibility. What does visibility mean? This is why we're here. Data has been collected over the last few years now from Aluwa Native and different groups. We'll watch a video later about it specifically. But they found that, and all this data collection and things that they researched, the Gina Davis Institute has also been doing research when it comes to film and media representation. When it comes to American Indian and Alaskan Native representation, it's minimal, if that. We're less or sometimes 1% within the groups of, when it comes to media, when it comes to characters, when it comes to the main character, who's telling the story, who's writing the story, who's directing it. Everything is coming from a different perspective and telling our stories, which are not true, or telling a myth, right? Mythology of who we are as people. And so what we're here today is to dismantle that and say that we are a huge collective of a nations that span across this country. And we all have unique stories, unique languages, unique histories. And it's important that they're all told, and it's not just one perspective or one mythologized historical facts. It's not true.
Yeah.
And so going into that, that's why we're here. And so the history of why we got to this point where we don't even exist anymore, and that in the media, I should say, we're here, but that mythology that we're not here started in history. So Nicole.
Yeah, so there's a lot of historical trauma that Indigenous people have faced. I think, of course, it kind of, we talked about in our first session, it really stems back from the founding of our nation, giving thanks to Christopher Columbus for allegedly discovering America. We know that's a falsehood. We know that's not true. And we know that there were Indigenous stewards of the land. There were original people here, living here, who were dominated, who were slaughtered, who were killed. And that creates the historical trauma, right? I don't think a lot of people recognize that America was founded on bloodshed. And that was the bloodshed of Christina and I's ancestors. And so there's a lot of historical trauma. I think also not being recognized that we are still here. A lot of people speak about the Indigenous tribes as a past, when we are a past, present, and future. So there was a lot of trying to erase the history of Natives, and by us coming together and uniting and creating a voice and a tribe of our own, that empowers us to continue to do this good fight for our people, and not just Native, but also our Black community, our Latino, Latinx community, our LGBTQ, our girls. I mean, there's so many other voices that need to be uplifted. Natives are one of them. Christina, did you want to add anything? Sorry, I'm just kind of.
No, that's good. That's good. Sorry, I was looking at the chat. I'm trying to be better about the chat. Last time I totally forgot about the chat. But yes, I would definitely just say that, and I know, sorry, Robert Levi is with us again. He had mentioned that there has been training specifically on this whole idea through history of kill the Indian to save the man, and we see that throughout time, throughout history and different colonized places, that's what happens. They go through, they see, and they strip them of their culture, of their language, of everything to assimilate them into the society, where they will then be an accepted person. And so in doing so, it's created this harm throughout generations and generations and generations. And we see that in within with our Black brothers and sisters. We see that with our Hispanic brothers and sisters, or Latinx. So it's just this continual colonizer mindset that has just been so embedded within our system that at this point it's almost just American. And so in this point, for it not to be, or to be taken away or to be brought up and discussed, it's considered, we get backlash from it. And so
and I think it's important because just because it doesn't fit the white European narrative, it doesn't mean that natives are savages and brutes and beasts the way that we've been labeled. Just because our culture isn't your culture doesn't make us savage. So going along with that, a lot of other historical trauma that Indigenous people have faced is also being used as mascots. We have them in our NFL, our baseball leagues. We have them sometimes even as school mascots. So we want to make it clear, like on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, my culture is not a costume. Some people even dress up as Indians for Halloween, and it's so offensive, and I don't think people realize that. Or even out here when there's Coachella, you see the white girls wearing the headdresses, and it's like, that is not your culture. That should not be on your head. Feathers are really respected and they're earned within tribes. I don't think people know that. So it's just, it's hurtful to us. And again, that goes back to the historical trauma. So we do have a video we'd like to show. It's about 7 minutes long, but it's so powerful, the message behind it. So after we do view the video, we would like to bring in our audience. So you guys here, we would love to have a discussion about any takeaways, things that really stood out to you, things that you would like to bring out into our discussion and into the safe space. And you'll see, again, a lot of beautiful people within this video.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Nicole. I'm going to go ahead and share it. I got this. This is from, this is a organization, Illuminative and Crystal Echo Hawk, the Echo Hawk Foundation have created this, have been doing this work for a while now, collecting data on visibility and actual Native invisibility. And so, like Nicole said, afterwards, we will have a brief just discussion, what you see, what you wonder, the teaching stuff.
Reclaiming Native Truth was an unprecedented national research effort. Never before has there been such a sizable investment by philanthropy in this type of research, and certainly in terms of its investment in Native Americans.
So we knew from the beginning that we were going to be doing something that hadn't been done before. It's our belief that the work that we do this year and in the next year going forward will really create a foundation of information and data the Indian country can utilize.
Data collection for the research project included focus groups, in-depth interviews with political, judicial, civil rights, business, and entertainment leaders. The project also looked at nearly 5 million social media posts from Twitter, Facebook, and blogs. More than 2,000 people responded to a national survey testing new narrative and message strategies. In addition, the project conducted 3 national surveys on the key issues and perceptions of Native America.
What we learned from the Reclaiming Native Truth research is that I think it affirmed many assumptions that Native Americans had. And that's that there are deep-rooted biases and toxic assumptions that many Americans across the United States hold.
Many Americans, including those in key institutions such as courts, philanthropy, and Congress, hold a number of biases about Native Americans. And many of these beliefs are learned in grades K through 12. The most toxic is the sense that Native Americans are growing rich from welfare and casino dollars. The study found only 36% of Americans polled believe Native Americans face discrimination. This indicates the level of discrimination against Native Americans is underestimated compared to other groups. The invisibility of Native peoples in everyday life, media, popular culture, K through 12, education, and institutions is extremely damaging and contributes to bias, discrimination, and institutional racism. In addition, these biased narratives set by others also impact policy towards Native Americans. The majority of Americans know very little about Native Americans or know any Native peoples at all.
What I found really interesting today is that 40% of people still believe that Native Americans don't exist. The real problem is when young Indian people consume media made by non-Indians and then measure themselves against it. And so it is problematic in our own communities if our children don't have the opportunity to see themselves authentically from an Indigenous perspective.
The project has yielded some very promising pathways forward. 72% of Americans believe it is necessary to make significant changes to school curriculum on Native American history and culture. 64% of those surveyed, even among conservatives, supported increased resources to reduce poverty, add improved healthcare and education. We also learned that new, more accurate narratives about Native Americans work. The Native Truth Project tested messages on a number of Native issues, including tribal sovereignty, education, and the Indian Child Welfare Act. The messages highlighted values, accurate history, and the visibility and accomplishments of Native Americans today. More than half are willing to share the new messages.
In our research, we identified 3 groups. We identified allies, we identified movables, and we identified a third group that's going to be more challenging for us to move.
This research has been a ton of aha moments. Why this project was really important is because most of us in our professional careers are working on dissuading those myths and had no idea what that core narrative that people held of Indians was. And so we were always treating the symptoms and not the disease.
One of the most important things for us to accomplish is to be able to make sure that policy decision makers actually understand who we are at the core of our souls, our culture, our spirituality, our contributions. And they haven't learned that in the education system, but they can learn it by us. And I'm excited about using this data. When we think about the work that we do at NCAI, we do a lot of great policy work, but what we do not very well is sharing what we do and sharing the message. This data is going to help us share that message in a way that people can find our work more useful.
So I think this project really kind of gives us that kind of shared opportunity that we can work with advocates and allies and others who are interested in social justice and in equity, and we can all come together so that we can have a better way of life, socially and economically, while still retaining our identities. I think that's what this project helps do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the way that I think about this is that we build awareness about invisibility. We build awareness if we can get mainstream society talking about the way in which invisibility of Native people is the modern form of racism, step number 1 accomplished. Number 2, if we can get people to take seriously the fact that they are not getting a good education about Native people and to be upset about that, right? To start seeking out more information.
We are so early on in the process of what we understand. And we've learned a lot in 18 months, but there's still a great deal we don't know. And what's exciting to me is the investigation and the research that happens as a result of this and carries on and adds nuance to this. This is where it gets exciting, that we're starting to build a body of research and a knowledge base around this that we didn't have before. And that's why it's important that this work carries on beyond this first phase of the project.
And this next phase is about taking action, and it's about taking action with a clear focus on 5 key targets. We think we can impact change: popular culture, media, K through 12 education, policy, and philanthropy. And so really it's vitally important that this next phase happen, because this is really where the rubber meets the road, right? This is where the opportunity lies for organizations and activists and tribal leaders and different types of institutions to actually take this data and to take the learning and the strategies developed and actually make change happen.
of many movements through data, resources, more truthful, accurate shared narrative.
We invite potential allies, supporters, and others to join us in doing their part to shift the narrative, to help us remove bias and barriers, and achieve our collective vision for the change we want to make to improve the lives of all Native peoples.
So Christina and I would like to invite you all to join the conversation. Was there anything that stood out to you that you felt was relevant or important? Please feel free to either type your ideas in the chat or unmute yourself and just talk with us, your ideas. I see Awana's math is used for something good. She's one of our math tosas.
I feel like if I start talking, I might kind of.
That's okay.
It's okay. I guess I call it angry. So I'm just gonna. I'm glad this is happening right now, and it is so necessary, because honestly, as a if being on a nation of colonizers, if the people who live on this land don't understand the history of this land and also the potential of the people who were on this land, who had religion, who had, education. It didn't look like Anglo-fied education or religion. If we don't become one with that, nothing's going to grow. If it's fragmented, because colonizing is fragmented, and if we don't start looking at how to unify, I'm so glad that Christina's doing this. I'm so glad that you, Dr. Crawford, are here. And this is the first time I've actually seen this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Iwana.
Thank you.
Other people, thoughts, takeaways?
No, I have a question.
Sure.
In regards to, I'm making my lab school Cabot Yerxa, where I'm innovating certain concepts, helping children developing their learning skills and some other issues. But it doesn't seem like a very large population of Native American children there. Okay, how are they identified?
So we were talking about this earlier this week. So when kids are enrolled in school, they're able to choose their primary ethnic identifier and a secondary one. So I'm able to go into our database and run a report. The kids who chose Native American or Alaskan Native as the first choice, there's only 9 families in our district that identify. But if you run a second report where you include them as a secondary identifier, we have over 300 families. So
that's not very many.
I know, but I think there are, and I think also we have to understand the context. I don't think a lot of people understand the true history of their culture. If, like, for example, I come from LA. So a lot of my students who I taught are like, oh, I'm Mexican. I understand you're Mexican, but you have Aztec blood in you, right? There's more indigenous cultures, because if you think about it, Spanish came from Spain. So there were original indigenous people in the lands of Mexico, even before it was known as Mexico. And then once the Spaniards came and dominated and brought Spanish, that's when he started speaking Spanish. So I think people knowing their true histories to be able to really self-identify is something that we've unfortunately struggled with and lost. Right?
Yeah.
So even being out here, yes, only 300 kids technically do identify as Indigenous. I guarantee you there are more because they don't know the actual history of their culture.
So also, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to dominate the question and answer, but so say for instance with Morongo, I know that some of the research I've done and some of the contacts I've made with the Indian population is that there are schools on reservations, right? Some of the reservations around. And so and it seems like that they don't want to leave the reservation to go to school, to go to public school, say when PSUSD. Is that true?
Christina could speak to this. She grew up on a res.
Yeah, right.
I can definitely speak on that, Mr. Elmore. It's interesting because with Palm Springs, with that area specifically, it's unique in the sense that the reservation is like the city is on top of the reservation, so to speak, and so they're all kind of all around. For myself, where I live in Morongo, so we do have an actual, like, you know, we're separated from everything reservation. So I bussed into Banning Unified every day when I was a kid. And so in that aspect, there was a very clear reservation kids versus town kids, you know. And it wasn't until, I don't know, I remember like in my elementary, middle school, high school, we had, there was an Indian Education Act some sort. So we did have like tutoring and somebody that would offer services for us. But other than that, there really wasn't any other really support other than what the tribes would try to do. And then as we've grown, Morongo has we have our school here. Not all the students attend this school. Some students still attend the public school system. So it's not, the tribal schools aren't necessarily specifically all the Indian school or all the Indian kids are going to those schools. And then with Palm Springs, there is no specific tribal school out in Palm Springs area. There are private schools. And so some members might decide to put their child in a private school instead of the public school. And which is, it kind of, again, it goes into that, the whole visibility, but then the historical trauma, the mistrust with the school system, and the fact that historically there has been a generation after generation of no support from the school system for the kids, and that continual, like, you know, school, it's the same thing, prison to pipeline, because they see the kids and they see them as trouble, they see them as gang members and problems and this and this and this. And so, yeah, the services themselves are almost non-existent. And then when you add in the layer of like, well, you need to also identify your race, which we already know is a social construct, like the whole thing. And so then to add your race in, there's also that layer of complexity when it comes to identity, because for myself, I am a native, I'm a descendant of the tribe, but I'm myself not an official enrolled tribal member. So within our own tribes and with our own people, there's also different levels of like how much and how little and where. So there's, I mean, when we talk about layers and layers of historical, you know, when you're looking at how to identify people within a system that's already tried to wipe them out, so to speak, it's hard to find them, you know? And so that's where programs like what I'm trying to bring to our district, what Dr. Crawford and I are doing, is trying to bring more attention and bring more support. So that way we don't continue in the same cycle of, you know, not supporting all of our students, because, you know, some of them maybe don't know or don't understand where they fit in. And maybe even if they don't identify as Native, but somehow they feel so like within these spaces, maybe hearing John sing this morning or hearing people, you might just feel drawn to that, or you go into the powwow, you know, some people might just want.
I love the powwow. I love powwow.
I think somehow we also feel that intersectionality that brings us together as people. And so that too is a whole nother beautiful layer of what we're doing, because it's not just, and obviously it's to help and support our Native students, but it's to help all our students so they can be better human beings all around, right? And so I appreciate the question. And I know that we definitely have to have more. I know there's more Native students in our district. It's just, you know, for me, my thing is like, I want to be so loud that they're like, I want to go there. And then they will come out and I'll find them. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, and so that's what I'm trying to do right now. And the more that they see the visibility that the district is doing it, then we will see the Native people will come to us.
I think once the kids start to know and the parents start to hear, like we actually have a PAC a parent advisory for our Indigenous community. I think that speaks volumes, and I appreciate that it is getting out there, because once more families are aware that we are supporting the tribes, that they will feel more comfortable and confident in rolling into Palm Springs and becoming a part of our community. So I think that would speak volumes. Definitely. And the cool thing too, we talked about this in our last session, is that we worked with the Cahuilla tribe in particular to develop curriculum. So our 3rd grade, our 8th grade, and our 11th graders have curriculum dedicated to the tribe so that they can learn the history of the land where they live. And we're also revamping our ethnic studies curriculum. So by 2024, the graduating class has to enroll into some sort of ethnic studies in high school. So we have already started working with Dr. Kulian, who is the Director of Secondary Instruction and Curriculum. And we've been working together to create a committee of some sort to rewrite our current ethnic studies curriculum to include actual voices, because I know other school districts like LAUSD, they just had a curriculum team who wrote all the curriculum for everyone. And it wasn't a very inclusive, it was majority white team. So you cannot, as a white person, speak on behalf of the Black community, the Indigenous community, the Latino community, and bring that culture and that voice. It's not your culture to speak on. Yes. So that's why we as a district are striving to bring our people of color together to say, what's important in your community? What do we need to speak on your culture? What do our kids need to know? As opposed to, we just have this section of people who is going to do the work for everybody. We're about inclusivity. And I think that's the beautiful thing about our district, is we're the first of its kind to really do it, especially in this valley, right? I mean, even my position, I give so much credit to our district, because even my position, I'm the only one in this valley in a position like mine. So I think that speaks huge about what Palm Springs vision is and where we're going. Definitely.
Yeah, and that's interesting too. I'm not trying to dominate the conversation, but this is such an opportunity to get some feedback, because I don't see you every day, but are you guys? So I hear what you're saying about bringing a team together, and you're going to construct this ethnic outreach or programming. So what? I'm community. Okay, I can't function in a controlled environment. So, but community-wise, what consideration has been given to bringing in community input?
We've actually been in the talks about that, because community is a huge thing, right? We reside within the community, our school districts. So we've already started talking about how can we even improve like our CTE program, our career and technical education.
Now there's another one.
Right?
I can share something with you about that too.
Right? So how can we build community partnerships within our district so our CTE program can grow? How can we bring in, like, for example, the Agua Caliente Plaza? That's another thing that resides within our community. How can we bring those resources in? So trust me, Frank, when I say like we've been in the works, we've been talking about it, we're trying to plan how we can get the community more involved, because you may not have kids, you may live in Palm Springs, but you may not have kids that attend the district, but you're still a part of our district because we're a part of the community together, right? So it's still in the works. If you have any ideas, I would love to hear them. Probably not right now, obviously, because
obviously,
in a different fashion, but I'll actually-
Perhaps I would choose you as a reference point, because you're on the inside. And so from what you're telling me that you guys are doing, it's in sync with what I'm doing.
Yeah, I dropped my email in the chat for you. So please take note of it. If you ever need to contact me, I would love to hear your vision. Definitely.
I love that. Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford. Thank you, Mr. Elmore.
So just a time check, we have about 15 minutes, Christina.
Oh, shoot. Wow, that went,
I know, went very quick.
That's okay. I'd rather have the conversation. For me, I'm all about just the conversation than the slides. You have the slides, right? Once the conversation keeps going, it's, then it's organic, and that's what I love, right? That's where the voices are heard. I'm not here to lecture at you. But I appreciate all of this, because we do, and it sounds like, we all get that within all our communities that we need to be more aware of how we how we view ourselves and how we what we see out there, and like bringing it back to before with that video and the work that has been done so far with the collecting the data. talking specifically recently, because again, there's so many things that are happening right now in the news and in this country, that all of this is so relevant, right? And so I'm going to share again. So just recently, you know, there has been still continues to be a huge movement to get the sports teams to change their name, to get rid of their mascots. And it's been met with a lot of resistance, right? Because again, it's the history. The society has become so accustomed to seeing Native people stereotyped and mascotted that to have it removed from a team that people root for, all of a sudden they're angry. And who are they angry at? They're angry at the Native people who are asking for something to help them. You know what I mean? So we're in this very, it's a very important time in history for this to be happening.
Yeah.
But it's also an important time for us to have our allies, and like Crystal Hawk said in the video, our movables to join us in this collective movement. And it not only just, again, helps just the Native people, it helps everyone, because it helps us as human beings to be just better people, working with one another and being with community with one another. And so in recently with Washington changing their name to the Commanders, of course, you know, if you read the comments and look at all the other, there's just people already making fun of it and already, like, you know, complaining. And then you have the other teams who haven't done anything. We haven't changed it. You still have the Chicago Blackhawks with their mascot. You still have the Kansas City Chiefs, and they go all out. Then you had the former president go up to a Kansas City Chiefs and really just go for it with the chop. You know, so it's like when you have the other side that's just refusing to allow change, it makes this work harder, but it also hopefully empowers allies and movables to join us, so that way we can see that it's to better everyone as a society. I don't know if we have time for this.
I think we do. We have 15 minutes, so we're good.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we only have like 4 slides after this. Okay, so there's a couple ways we've been talking about the historical trauma, and well, what are some ways that we can definitely honor Natives, right? So the one thing is relearn the actual true story of Christopher Columbus and how he did not discover America, and he is actually a murderer and a rapist. Join an Indigenous Peoples Day event instead. Support that movement. Support Native-owned businesses. Read literature by different Indigenous writers. Donate toward different causes of Indigenous people. You can also educate yourself by gathering information, going to different museums to visit. You can attend educational events. You can decolonize Thanksgiving. My family does not celebrate Thanksgiving because of that. And also giving thanks and recognizing the land that you are on. So we do have a short video clip. It's about 3 minutes, and it's a word association. So a bunch of Indigenous people came together. They tell them the word Christopher Columbus. You tell us what's the first word that came to mind. It is a very powerful video. Just a trigger warning, it does have the F word in it. I did scan the room multiple times, so I know we're all adults present, so I just wanted to put it out there though. If you do not wish to hear this language, please mute now until the video is over, but it is a very powerful video, and we can quickly talk about it after.
Christopher Columbus.
Oh. Evil. Pure evil.
Invader. He got lost coming here, and he's the one that named us Indians because he thought he was in India. So he's not a good figure to the Native community.
Confused. I don't think we should have a holiday for it.
Pain, claiming North America as like land that could be claimed and could be taken. It's the start of a lot of pain.
Christopher Columbus.
I guess ignorance.
Oh my God, murderer, rapist.
Genocide.
The atrocities committed, just grotesque. And the scars are still felt today.
Evil.
Evil.
Fuck him.
Fuck Christopher Columbus.
That's a big fuck you. He's the first terrorist in America, that's for sure.
So according to the U.S. government law, it says if you partake in somebody that's stealing, then you're just as guilty. Everybody knows the United States was stolen. So therefore, all those that are aboriginal that knows about the genocide, the rape, the murder, the theft, the putting on the reservations on a rock that they couldn't survive on, they're going to have to face judgment.
Murderer, rapist. It always was weird to me to have that day off in celebration of somebody. Like, we don't have a day for Hitler, but it's, you know, it's the same thing.
Like there are so many other people that Italian Americans or Italians can hold up as their heroes besides Columbus.
Wrong.
Fake.
Fake.
What do they teach you about Christopher Columbus in school?
They teach us that Christopher Columbus discovered America.
What should they teach?
That Christopher Columbus didn't discover anything and instead got lost.
So I personally love showing that video. I was a high school teacher before I transferred into the district office. And I always warn the kids, trigger warning, you know, bad language. But what are some takeaways? If anyone wants to unmute yourself quickly and just tell us any thoughts, feelings, emotions when you watched the video?
No, I can relate in the historical perspective, because what I know in studying the African or the American African in the historical aspects is like there's a lot of information about Christopher Columbus and how he got financed and different issues regarding what he did coming, how he got lost and everything like that. But I relate to it on in the same regard as, because if you look at the history, if you look at the real deep history, like coming from ancient Egypt, which we call Kemet, is like, it's totally a lie. Everything is a lie. It's a trickle down, dummied up lie. And it's very unfortunate to those who would not delve deeper, more deeply into trying to uncover the real truth. And you know, now the movement is like, we don't want that history in our books. You know, the money makers, they say, oh no, we can't have that history in our books, which is a daggone shame, man. You know, the truth, we got to discover the truth and present it on our own merit.
Definitely. Definitely, Frank. Thank you. I noticed in the chat, Robert brought up the fact about Palm Springs High. That was something that Christine and I debated about touching upon. We did do research about the school's name, and it does seem like the Cahuilla tribe did, I don't necessarily want to say give blessing, but they were okay with Palm Springs keeping the name Indian as long as the mascot and logos were changed, which is why Palm Springs High now uses the PS. Again, Christine and I were still kind of, is that a discussion topic we want to go on to? I want to also point it out, the road is called Big Red. So we are, trust me, we are very aware of some things that are still in our district. But again, along with working with the tribe, because it is their land, if it sits okay in their hearts, then we will be okay with it. If there is an issue with the tribe, then of course, out of respect, I know that our district will respect their wishes. So as of that for right now.
Well, and I just to speak on that too, Robert, thank you for bringing that up. And I know that for everyone to say that, I know that's definitely something that, you know, I've been upset with, and I brought up the name of the high school a few times, and just in general, because it's kind of tough. Again, it's one of those things with the larger perspective, because it's that battle within even our own, like the naming of it, because we still have people who some people still go and are okay with American Indian as their identifier, and some just Indian, and some Native, some Indigenous, some, there's like, the naming is already a huge issue because, and again, thanks Christopher Columbus, because you come here, you call Indian, now it's law, it's like in our government constitution, it's in everything as Indians. And so it's like, how do you take that out? And then if it's in there as a name within the government, is that then therefore is it considered a mascot still? Because yeah, you're naming a school after a group of people. Is that okay? And so there's a lot of layers, and I'm not the person who's going to be the one person to fight it, but I'm definitely the person who's going to bring it up and say, let's have this conversation with both people, with everyone, with the district, with the local community, with the tribe, because it's an honest conversation that we need to have, because our students are wondering, our students are asking. If our students are conflicted, then we need to talk about it, and we need to know how we can fix it for our kids. Yes. Because us as adults, we're so used to the language that it's kind of, again, we're in that assimilated mindset in that way that it's just like, ugh, it is what it is kind of thing. Where in a way it's like, it's just tired and old, and we need to discuss it so that the next generations who are really mad and trying to make a difference, that we can help them and support them, because it's traumatic, right? It's been hurting kids forever. It's hurt me. It's hurt all of for generations and generations. And so for us to consider, it can still kind of be like, but it is what it is kind of thing. That can't be the answer anymore. It really can't. No. So that involves deeper conversations.
So just a time check, we have about 5 minutes, ladies and gents, so we'll get through these slides quickly. There's a QR code here on the slide that you can scan to identify which traditional land you're occupying currently. And again, land acknowledgements, it's one way that we're doing now because we want to increase the visibility of our people. We want to fight the erasure of the Native peoples. So again, you can scan the QR code. It is also in the link that Christina shared earlier that you can reopen if need be.
Yes, and it's just, that's just the first step, and acknowledging, right? Because they're still here. And then also, in addition to that, looking at how else you can support local, support Native owned businesses, Native owned media. There's a lot of really amazing films and movies that are coming out that are completely run by Native Indigenous teams. And then you have, there's plenty of books. I have, and within the slides as well, you'll have a link at the resources at the end. I'm really grateful to the district for working with Dr. Sharroky Hollie for the culturally responsive teaching. It's been huge for me as a Native teacher, because I struggle being a teacher as a Native person, honestly, because my mind doesn't fit in that system of how we're supposed to teach. It's hard. And so this training has been so eye-opening for me, because it's like, oh, the things that come natural to me as a person, as a human within my culture, it just finally clicked with Dr. Sharroky Hollie. And so I'm just grateful for that. So things like that are ways that we can, again, be more cognizant, be more aware of how we can include that, have that inclusivity for our students. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The Cultural Plaza will be opening soon. The Agua Caliente band. I know Christina and I, we've talked about using the plaza as kind of like a meet and greet, coming together, again, supporting the Indigenous peoples and different Native owned businesses. And it's going to have a lot of different things. It'll have food places, it'll have medicinal things, clothing. But again, if you want to be a supporter of the Indigenous people, I would recommend visiting the Cultural Plaza, because it's going to be beautiful. It's still under construction, but once it is open, of course, we will do the announcement so you can go and visit and check it out.
And it's, and it's our first session, we had John Preckwinkle, who was the Cahuilla bird singer for the first beginning. He spoke on it again. It's all completely, the tribe has been, it's just their way to tell their story, and it's going to be beautiful. And I'm so excited, and I can't wait. But it's also going to include other tribal nations throughout as well. So it's definitely going to be a huge learning space for us all. In addition to that, I just want to draw attention to something that I'm working on, which is kind of encompassing why we're here today with this discussion, and also with the NAPAC that we just started as a district. I'm really hoping to bring a Title VI Indian education program to our district. I'm working on figuring out how to do it, figuring out all of the paperwork and all the stuff, and then we can get that started. And then the last, sorry, really quick, I'm just going to put this up for our NAPAC if you are interested in joining the NAPAC, this QR code as well. You can come to our next meeting. And again, I'm just opening it to the community because the more allies, the more people we can have with us, the better and more we could be transformative for our students. And I think that's it. I think the last thing was resources, right?
Yeah. And again, all these links are in the Google Slides that Christina shared as well, if you need it.
Yeah, let me go back in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing.
Very good.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. I mean, this was such an empowering conversation, and we appreciate you all so much. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I put this in the chat, but I'll just take a second to say it here. Thank you, Christina. As I said the other day, for your passion, your vision, right, and your leadership and work around these projects. And thank you, Nicole. This was a fabulous session. So big thank you to everyone who spoke and shared. And I loved hearing our parent voice, of course, as well as our teacher voice and community members. So we're definitely listening. This is very, very important to us. And I hope you can see that in our hearts. And again, a big congratulations and thank you to Christina and Dr. Crawford for a great session. Thank you.
Thank you. This is huge to have our big boss man and our boss lady here with us. So Dr. Sweezy and Dr. Kovacs, thank you so much, because everyone here, your voices were definitely heard. So this was an amazing experience.
And you